So let me remind you very quickly. We talked about the causes and the reasons. Causes and the reasons why people become munkareen hadith, or they are guilty of, or they are suffering from inkar al hadith. Sometimes it is due to ignorance, and most times, in my opinion, it is due to ignorance with Islamic sciences. Some people make assumptions about Islamic sciences. They think that what they think is true about Islam. That's the assumption. They think Islam has to fit into their social construct, social conditioning. Every single human on the planet is conditioned. Every single person in the world is conditioned by environment, by culture, by language, by upbringing, by education, by the politics, by the weather, call it the climate. It can be a number of factors that condition the thinking and the being of a person. Do you all agree with that? Yes? So people from Pakistan are not like the people from Brazil. And people from Nigeria are not exactly the same as the people of Sweden. And why they are different? I'm not talking about their looks and their ethnicity. I'm talking about how they feel, how they think, how they talk, how they express their views, all of that. Because they have gone through different procedures of being conditioned. Sometimes it's the fashion that conditions your mind, the dominant thought, or the political system that conditions you. For example, I gave you examples in the last session that when Mughals were governing India, the culture was very dominant. The Mughals had formed a culture. There was a court culture. There was a fashion that was going on. Persian poetry was very popular among the literati of that society. People would write poetry in Persian just to make a place in the society, right? Just to be accepted among the educated people of the society. Your Persian had to be good, your Arabic had to be good, okay? Not necessarily your Hindi or Urdu. By the way, Hindi is a spoken language of North India. Urdu is a child of Hindi. The language you speak, Urdu, is originally an Indian language. And Hindi has a very strong influence on it from Sanskrit. While with Urdu, we have a very strong influence from the Arabic and the Persian language. So Urdu became the language of the Muslims in the subcontinent, mainly in the 18th century. It became a literary language, while previously it wasn't a literary language as such. Persian was. The Persian language was a literary language pre-18th century India. So the fashion was that people used to learn these languages, and even Hindus, believe it or not, and Sikhs had become Persianized or Islamified or Mughalized, depending on how you want to see it. The Sikh gurus, you know the religion, Sikh religion, you know about it, yes? Yeah? The Sikhs believe in 10 gurus. And if you look at the last guru, Guru Gobind Singh, if you look at his paintings, old ones, he looks like a Mughal. His turban is Mughal, his kameez is Mughal, his pajama is Mughal, right? The way he's dressed, the armory, the saddle, the way, the culture, he has been Mughalized. He wrote poetry in Persian. There's a famous poem attributed to him called Zafarnama, which he wrote to the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb Alamgir to express his feelings about the situation he was going through. Likewise, Hindus, They wrote in Persian. There were Hindus who were writing poetry in Persian. They had become Persianized because of the culture, because of the environment, the conditioning. Then the British came and the culture changed. In the 19th century, they become anglicized. The Mughal clothing was put aside and the English clothing was put on. So because English became the dominant power politically, people started to dress like the English. They started to speak the English language. Persian language was put on the shelf. Or it was shelved. 6 centuries, Muslims were expressing themselves in the Persian language mainly. From the period starting from the Delhi Sultanate, the government or their dominance, up to the Mughal period, the decline of the Mughals. Then the British became a dominant power and everyone started to, the Hindus became anglicized, right? And the Muslims are still struggling with this cultural, the clash of cultures, right? Some Muslims had chosen to adopt, some Muslims had chosen to adopt the previous culture, call it the Mughal culture or the Islamic culture or the Persian culture or the Arabic culture, and others had adopted the English culture. This is why Aligarh University was formed. The reason why I'm telling you these things is to understand that people just don't come out with ideas out of the blue. Those ideas have background. They have reasons. They have causes, right? So Inkarul Hadith is another idea that came to prominence due to Western thinking or colonial thinking, colonial influences. Some of the questions people ask today about Hadith and the doubts people cast on Hadith literature, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is because of these external influences. We have been affected. Maybe you don't know you have been affected. The reason why you are dressed the way you are, and this is not, I'm not taking a dig, this is the reality of the times. Some of the brothers here in front of me who are evidently practicing Muslims, but they are dressed in if you want to call it Western clothing, right? Or English clothing, or call it, Western. I like to use the term Western clothing. We know what we mean by the West. The West is towards the West, okay? Generally, it refers to Western Europe or Western civilization, okay? And again, to clarify, this is not a dig at the Western civilization. There are great things about the Western civilization. There are great achievements in the Western civilization, like there were in the Islamic civilization, and like there is potential to repeat the same within the Islamic civilization, right? But we have been affected, possibly without having realized it, right? If the fashion at the time was to wear a turban with a flower popping up, right, from the turban, or wearing jewels on the turban, or wearing gowns, if, for example, Mughals were to return today, if the Mughals were to return today, or if the Ottomans were to come back to power in this current day and age, and they were the dominant political, economic, and military power in the world, are you listening? And with military and economic strength comes academic strength. Because you have the money, you can fund universities, you can fund scholars who write top of the range works in philosophy, in literature, in poetry, in history. Their research is the top. So other people start to adopt your ways because you are dominant culturally, economically, politically, and academically. Academic progress is directly linked to economic prosperity. Like Will Durant, one of the philosophers, he said that civilization consists of 4 elements. A civilization, जिसको हम तहजीब कहते हैं, it consists of 4 elements. And those elements are what? Number 1, economic prosperity. Number 2, political stability. Number 3, pursuit of knowledge and arts. Number 4, moral traditions. These are the 4 elements that make a civilization. And all of these 4 elements rest upon one pillar. And that pillar is a sense of security, justice. Justice and security are lazim and malzoom. If there is no justice, you won't have security. Okay? And when you have security, when your society is secure, then you start to make progress. So all of these four elements rest upon one pillar, and that pillar is called security, a sense of security. So economic provisions are linked to political stability, and political stability is linked to pursuit of knowledge and arts, and pursuit of knowledge and arts is linked to moral traditions. And all of these four elements were important ingredients of the Islamic civilization. That's why the Islamic civilization is known as the Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization, ya Tehzeeb-e-Islami, is based upon the Islamic tradition. Without the Islamic tradition, there is no Islamic civilization. It's simple. Without the Quran and the Sunnah that explains the Quran, there is no Islamic civilization. You cannot imagine the child without the mother. Do you agree? Who comes first, the child or the mother? Chicken and egg argument. Huh? Who comes first? Who comes first? शक में पड़े हुए हैं सब. Huh? Mothers come first, yeah? इसीलिए माँ का मुकाम है. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talked so much about the rights of mothers. So mothers come first. So Quran is the mother of Islamic civilizations, or civilization, if you want to put it in one basket. Because I believe Islamic civilizations existed. And they varied from time to time, from place to place, depending on where they were, geographically. Are you getting bored? बहुत ज़्यादा फ़लसफ़ा तो बयान नहीं हो रहा. समझ आ रही है सबको? Can you all understand what I'm talking about? Okay, good. So I'm explaining how ideas arise. Why do people start thinking in a particular way? Why does Islamic art look the way it looks? Huh? Why does the Arabic calligraphy looks the way it looks? Why do we recite the Quran in a particular way? Why does it have a particular effect on us? All these things are related to our civilization and the causes of our civilization. So we are conditioned by our environments. Ideas do affect us. So when Muslims were politically, economically, academically dominant, the Europeans were copying the Muslims. It's natural. Muslims were militarily, economically, politically, and academically were the leaders of the world for nearly 1,000 years, for over 1,000 years. You are simply unaware of it. I'll be very crude and brutal with you people who are listening to me right now. You are completely unaware of it. If you will tell me today that you know what Islamic civilization is, I'll tell you no. You don't know. Because I know you don't know. Who has read Diwan-e Hafiz here? Diwan-e Hafiz. I'm not saying it's a prerequisite of being a Muslim. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to show you who has read all the books of Imam Ghazali, or some of the books of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, or some of the works of Ibn al-Hajar al-Asqalani, or some of the philosophy of Shah Waliullah. Bas, hawa nikal gayi sabki. This is the point. You cannot know a civilization without knowing it. And how do you know it? You know it by studying it, by thinking about it. और आपके बड़े बड़े स्कॉलर्स जो हैं आज, जो जिंदा हैं, even they don't know. They don't know. This is why you haven't produced one Shah Waliullah in the last 2 centuries. पिछले 200 साल में शाह वलीउल्लाह की कोई आपने मिसाल पैदा की है? He was a product of a particular way of thinking, a culture, a society, a sense of being. Shah Waliullah was not just normal, some dude from the street, some Tom, Dick and Harry. The reason why we have completely lost touch with the Islamic civilization is because we have been dominated by another civilization, politically, economically, militarily, and academically. Your curriculum is made elsewhere. वो क्या शेर है इकबाल का, ये मगरिब के इमारत घरों की है तामीर. Who knows? इकबाल की शायरी भी नहीं याद आपको? सॉरी, वो इकबाल की एक नज़म है ना, अफरंग ज़दा. Who has read it? किसी ने पढ़ी है? अफरंग ज़दा, उसको ज़रा गूगल करें उर्दू में, किसी के पास अगर है वो. अफरंग ज़दा, मुझे भी याद नहीं, मुझे भी भुला दिया आपने. And Iqbal talks about it amazingly. Iqbal refers to it that हम जो है वो अफरंग ज़दा हैं, हम पर उसका असर है. तो इसीलिए अब we have assumed for this reason, there is a presumption before even the discussion begins that what the Western thinkers think is the default position. To judge another culture, another civilization, you have to use a criteria. When you say something is good, you have to know the bad to measure the good against it. क्या बात है इकबाल की. अब ये उर्दू शायरी का एक वो शुरू हो जाएगा यहाँ पर लेक्चर, right? So I don't want to turn it into that. Iqbal talks about this problem of colonial influences on the Muslim mind. And he hits the nail on the head. Tera wujud sarapa tajalli afrang. Who is going to translate that? इसका तर्जुमा कौन करेगा? अब उर्दू ही नहीं आती आप लोगों को right? तेरा वजूद सरापा तजल्ली अफरंग. Your being
colored with the Farangis
is an example, is an epitome. Yes, exactly. Your being, your existence is an example of the influences of the Afrang. The Afrang to him was colonialism. He's talking about colonialism, right? कि तू वहां के इमारत घरों की है तामीर. Because you have been made by them. You have been made by Western architects. That's why you look westernized. Because mind makes the body. You will look like what you think like. Do you agree? Huh? If you love Shah Rukh Khan and you all day and all night you're thinking of Shah Rukh Khan or Katrina Kaif, you're going to start looking like them, yeah? Do you agree? Huh? If you are in love with Tom Cruise, huh? वो देखा आपने कभी बच्चों के जो हमारे नए नए बच्चे जो हैं वो जब वो उनको what makes them think that they have to have a poster of Tom Cruise on the wall? Back in the day it used to be Michael Jackson and Madonna and George Michael जब मेरे जवानी के दिन थे, right? In the 90s when I was a teenager, you know, kids used to have these posters. अभी नई नई बलाई निकल आई हैं, अभी नए नए नाम आ गए हैं, अब नए नए posters छप रहे हैं, right? Yes, why? Why are the kids coming back from school and literally worshipping these people? Because they are being conditioned. Day and night they are being conditioned to think that these people are admirable. शाह वलीउल्लाह की कोई तस्वीर तो उनकी है ही नहीं. शाह वलीउल्लाह की कोई नसीहत क्यों नहीं लगी हुई दीवार के ऊपर? दीवान हाफिज के क्यों नहीं वहाँ पर अशार लगे हुए फारसी ज़ुबान के? या अल-मुतनब्बी जो अरबी का शायर था बहुत बड़ा, उसकी शायरी क्यों लगी हुई? या इमाम गजाली के कोई कोट्स नहीं है, कुछ और नहीं है, कोई इस्लामिक कैलीग्राफी अल-हमरा पैलेस की जो कैलीग्राफी है वो नहीं है. Why is it? Because we are being conditioned. Then he goes on to in the next part, तेरी निगाह में साबित नहीं खुदा का वजूद. That in your eyes God doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. मेरी निगाह में साबित नहीं वजूद तेरा. I think you don't exist. If you think God doesn't exist, then you don't exist. Because you cannot exist without God's existence. It is impossible. So, this is the thinking of Iqbal. Before I start to do Tashri Iqbal ki shairi, we'll come back to our topic. So, even he picked on this, rahmatullah alayh, that cultures dominate and they influence. So now currently the fashion is, in this day and age, that everything the Western civilization deems normal has to be normal. Anything that doesn't fit into the Western discourse, because colonial discourse has become Western discourse today. Colonialism was based upon a particular way of thinking. It had philosophy backing it. Colonialism was backed by science and philosophy. Did you know that? Colonial administrators working in India, those who were working here as the British administrators running the colonial system, were influenced by philosophers like John Stuart Mill, Thomas Malthus, and the writings of Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, and David Hume, Extreme Skepticism, Rejection of Miracles, are all things supernatural. So a lot of the colonial administrators were influenced by a number of different philosophies, Western thinkers. That's why they managed to justify a lot of the things they did in colonial lands. And then science came in. Darwin's theory, I talked about it even last time. Darwin came up with his theory in 1859. That theory was used to suppress non-white races. So a lot of these administrators had become racist. They started to think that the white race is the most evolved race scientifically. It is the most evolved and advanced race even genetically. And non-white races are still in the process of evolving. They haven't yet fully evolved. That's why some of the slave owners in the 19th century, they started to use Darwin's theory of evolution to suppress the blacks in America. They started to say blacks are they're not fully evolved yet. They are still in the process of evolving. And they wrote books to justify this. So it depends on what times you live in and where you live. Thinking will be influenced by the dominant forces. So know that today, the reason why we even have to discuss the topic of atheism in the Muslim world is because Tera wujood hai sarapa tajalliye afrang, is because you don't know what Islamic civilization is. You have no idea what our thinkers, our philosophers have written in the past, because it's mainly in Persian and in the Arabic language. Urdu mein bahut kam hai. So you have been heavily influenced by colonial thinking, which became Western thinking later on. Okay? And now the assumption is that we have to judge every other system, including Islam, against the perfect model of Western civilization, as it is claimed. So the presumption is that what colonialism or what Western thought has to say on certain matters is the standard to judge other civilizations by. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Samajh aa rahi hai sabko? Sabko samajh aa rahi hai? Yes. Right. So that's the standard you have to judge everything by. उसका नतीजा ये हुआ कि कुछ लोग अफरंग ज़दा हुए और उन्होंने इस्लाम में कीड़े निकालना शुरू कर दिए, और उसकी एक बहुत बड़ी एक मिसाल जो है वो इनकार हदीस है, क्योंकि ये सवाल पहले उठा ही नहीं गए. ये जो एज ऑफ आयशा का इशू है, मिसाल के तौर पे, इसको पिछली दफ़ा भी मैंने डिस्कस किया था. हज़रत आयशा की उम्र 9 साल थी. आयशा वाज 9 years old when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married to her. और आज के दौर में एक बहुत बड़ा मुअम्मा बन गया. This is a classic example of how a particular way of thinking, if it's dominant, affects you. because this Western secular liberal system is dominant even on the Muslim lands, even the Muslim world. Yeah, these questions are coming again and again, coming up. Why? Because now the culture has become Bollywood and Hollywood. Bollywood and Hollywood is the norm. Yes? Hollywood first and then Bollywood. It has become the norm. While आप कभी कोई बॉलीवुड की हेरोइन 13 साल की इमेजिन कर सकते हैं? Can you imagine a Bollywood movie heroine 13 years old? Hello? Can you imagine Shah Rukh Khan running in the field with a 13 years old girl? बोलो यार. हाँ? नहीं? या can you imagine आजकल कौन से हीरो हैं हॉलीवुड के बड़े बड़े स्टार्स जो हैं? Daniel Craig, for example. Daniel Craig, do you know Daniel Craig? James Bond. Huh? Daniel Craig, James Bond. Can you imagine a 12 or 13 years old heroine in a James Bond movie, and James Bond is having an affair with her and is having it out with her? Can you imagine? Why? Kyun bhai? Because you have never seen that in your societies, yes? But Shakespeare, his Juliet was 13. Shakespeare की Juliet तो 13 साल की थी. So if Shakespeare was to write the play today, he would be called a pedophile. Do you understand? Agar Shakespeare was to pen his Romeo and Juliet today, Juliet had to be 18 years old. She cannot be 13. Times have changed. People have been influenced. Thinking has changed. Lekin up to the 19th century, इसमें चाय है? Can I have some tea, please? मैंने कैसे दिखाने के लिए नहीं रखा हुआ है?
नहीं तो ब्रेक कर ले, ब्रेक कर ले.
जिस तरह हमारी तोपें चौकों पे नहीं लगी थी दिखाने वाली, हाथी के दांत दिखाने की. और जी नहीं, I want to finish this session and then after the break we'll have Q&A. ठीक है? So Shakespeare's Juliet was 13 and no eyebrows were raised. No one even flinched. It's not an issue. Even if she was 9 years old, it wouldn't have been an issue. Because up to the 19th century, are you listening to me? Yes. Up to the 19th century, up to the year 1900, San 1900, how far is that? 118 years. Up to the 19th century, this was not an issue. Actually, according to the English law, in England, you could marry a girl as young as 7 years old legally. It was the norm. It was not an issue. And this is clearly stated in the commentaries of William Blackstone on the English law. William Blackstone's commentaries on the English law, published 1867, although he wrote in the 18th century. William Blackstone's commentaries on the English law were published in the second half of the 18th century. 1760s onwards, he published many editions. But then his commentaries were republished with recent editions or recent developments in the law. But this particular law wasn't changed up to the year 1867. Because I have a copy in my possession of this particular book I'm quoting from. 1867, page 110, published in London. William Blackstone's commentaries on the English law, it states, a girl may be married at the age of 7. So before you go to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all of these Munkareen Hadith today who reject the age of Aisha, the Hadith in Bukhari, for example, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha was betrothed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at 6, and the marriage was consummated at 9, when she was 9. You know, this has become a problem for Munkareen Hadith because they have been strongly, heavily influenced by Western liberal secular thought of today, not of the 19th century. Liberalism and secularism existed even in the 19th century when it was not a bad thing at all. The moral standard was changed in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. The moral standard we are living by today, the Western moral standard by which all the humans are expected to live by, live through or live by, it came about in the early 20th century, because in the 19th century, go and check the list of all the nations and the age of marriage, the legal ages of marriage. Most American states in the 19th century, especially in the South, the age was 9. You could marry a girl at 9 years old. And some had 10, some had 12, the age of consent. Do you believe me or you don't believe me? If you don't believe me, I'll connect to the internet right now and I'll start reading all the scholarly quotes and all the tables. I'll put them in front of you. And possibly I'll request from the brothers, when they edit this video, while I'm talking, they can put up these links and some of the things I'm talking about. This can be seen on the screen. So what changed? ये लोग जो आज, intellectuals, इनकार हदीस वाले, मुनकरीन हदीस, they want to reject, these reports about Aisha being 9, because they feel ashamed. They feel as if they have to live by the forever changing system of the West, or Western thinking system, or Western thought, because it's forever changing. It's changing rules by the day. It's still evolving. Western thought is continuously evolving because it's human. Humans change. Humans learn new things and they keep changing, sometimes for the worst, not for the best. As we have seen in the 20th century, that this human thinking, or the Western mindset or Western thought, it can go into any direction. It can create fascism in Italy. It can possibly create Nazism, the Nazis in Germany. It can create Marxism, or what happened, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Karl Marx was what? He was born in Germany, he died in England. He's buried in the Highgate or Highbury Cemetery in London. Karl Marx. This is what happened in the 20th century. Now, same things are happening even today. So, we address the question of atheism today because that is the religion of the powerful. Do you understand? Islam became the topic of the day, or Islam became the most important topic in the world because it was politically, economically, militarily, academically dominant in the world for over 1,000 years. Muslims were very dominant for over 1,000 years. Muslims were writing commentaries on the Greek philosophers. Muslims were writing some of the top books on any topic in the world for over 1,000 years. When this was changed and the tide was turned and Western scholars started to work more on science and philosophy, their works became dominant. And Muslims went into a political decline. With that political decline came economic decline. With economic decline came the decline of the academic activity, and with that came moral decline. Moral decline came with that. Okay? And this is what we're going through right now in the Muslim world. Even though we have so much power, so much resources, we are going through a political decline. With that, we are going through, economic decline or economic problems, and that creates a number of other problems. So it is very clear that the reason we are talking about atheism today, or Inkar al-Hadith today, I'm not saying Inkar al-Hadith is atheism, by the way, don't get me wrong, because there are people out there They take things out of context. They will ignore the entire lecture and they will pick on one thing or one sentence I've said. Oh, look at this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Huh? So please, when you quote me in context. Okay? So it has become a problem today. You know, some of the Islamic concepts have become a problem for people. Firstly, those who have no idea what Islamic civilization is and what it stands for. Secondly, because they have thoroughly read the Western tradition and Western civilization, or read on it, they think it is the dominant system and everything has to live by it. If you want to be normal, basically just become a gora. Yeah. आजकल जो हमारे पॉलिटिशियंस टीवी पे भी एग्जांपल्स देते हैं, क्या एग्जांपल्स देते हैं? हाँ, व्हाट एग्जांपल्स डू दे गिव ऑफ परफेक्शन? जब भी कोई बात करेंगे, अमेरिका में इस तरह होता है, हाँ, राइट, बर्तानिया में इस तरह करते हैं वो लोग. ओ भाई, what happened to you? You're supposed to be the role model. You are supposed to be the role model. You have Islam. Islam should make you a better person. It should make your civilization a better civilization. It should become an example for the rest of the world. Islam should become, or the Muslim civilization, or the Muslims should become the mirror the world should look into to fix itself, not the other way around. Muslims shouldn't be looking into another mirror to fix their image. Rather, the Muslims should become the image that the other civilizations look into and fix themselves, like it happened in the past. It happened in the past. So, इनकार हदीस का जो इशू है वो इसीलिए डिस्कस हो रहा है, because it has been influenced, the thought has been influenced by the dominant forces. So atheism is the religion of the powerful. Okay? So those people who are in power in media, what does being powerful mean today? Who's going to help me? What does being powerful mean today?
To control the mind of the people.
To make the people think the way you want them. You don't want them to think, but you want yourself that they should think that way.
Okay, you make the people think the way you want them to think. Okay, that's one of the ways to become powerful. But what are three things you will tell me are the origin of power today? Or sorry, not how can I put it? Important ingredients for power. Money. So we can call it economy. Economy or economic strength. Number one. Number two, media. Right. Number three, no. Authority is general, it's vague. So we have two. Economic strength. Number two is media, because you are now making the masses think. You are telling them what is normal. Because you're talking to them, you are forming their thinking. You're conditioning them. Right?
System of education is also one of the reasons.
You can put that under media. Military strength. Three things, in my opinion. And there can be more. Of course, there are many more things. Right? Economic power, economic strength, media, whether it's print media, electronic media, or social media, whatever it is, amazingly, you own none of it. You, the Muslims, own none of it. You own none of it. And those who own it are a bunch of atheists, mostly. Mark Zuckerberg. Who is he? But who is he? The owner of what? Fitna book. The owner of Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg, even though he comes from a Jewish background, right? But he's an atheist. I'm not saying that he has an agenda to promote atheism through Facebook. It may be so, maybe in subtle ways it might be happening, but I'm not claiming that. I don't have any evidence for it. But I'm only giving you a few examples. What else? Bill Gates. Bill Gates. Do you think he's an atheist? I don't think he's a Christian. I don't think he's a Christian. Right? So we can give many examples. We can give many examples. Right? How do you know media is actually, or Western media in particular, is actually promoting atheism more than any other way of thinking? How do we know that? How do we know that? We know that by looking at the people who are speaking on the media, or the language that is spoken on the media. Religion is being attacked, not only Islam. I'm not saying Islam is basically under attack more than all other religions on the planet, right? But religion is generally attacked and undermined or degraded, and some people, the people who are put to represent religion, are generally very lame, unable to do it, unqualified. And on the other side, when you see atheistic thinkers, you have people like Richard Dawkins, you have people like Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, right? People like, he's dead now, Christopher Hitchens. So on the other hand, when you see people, most experts on Islam who are speaking on Islam in the Western media are generally not even Muslims. Ayan Hirsi Ali, the Somali woman who has become an expert on Islam for some reason, right? Tariq Fatah, do you know him? Yes. Uncle Tariq, do you know him? Yeah. Yes. Right? One of the biggest enemies of Islam, and I don't mean to say that biggest enemies of Islam means go and kill him. No, I'm not saying that. No. I'm only stating a fact. He has made it very clear that he doesn't like Islam. He hates Islam, actually. This is very clear. But he pretends to be a Muslim to get acceptance from Western media and Indian media as well. He has been very prominent there. And now even Indian media has abandoned him because he has no credibility. Even in Hindus. Even Hindus can see through the facade. Right? And there are examples like that. So the reason why we're discussing these topics is because the media is promoting these ideas. Atheism is systematically... Richard Dawkins' book, God Delusion, has become one of the best-selling items in the recent history. Why? There are better books out there. Salman Rushdie की किताब का क्या नाम है? Who knows it? Satanic Verses, and it's full of bakwas. It's full of bakwas. It's not even a literary masterpiece. It's not better than Jane Austen's writings. It's not better than some other people writing today, their writings. But why is that being pumped out there? So there is a reason. That the reason why we have been affected by these shubahat and these ideas is because they are being deliberately promoted and put out there for people to think like that. So for this reason, the greatest battle for Muslims today is to primarily have economic strength and use that economic strength to create your own media. You need your own social media. You need your own news channels. You need your own print media. You need your own books. You need your own thinkers, your intellectuals. You need to study Islamic civilization. We need more people, more Muslim youngsters to study the tradition of Islam. Islam is not only reading a tafsir of the Quran and maine pad liya Islam ko. No. It goes a lot further. It goes a lot further. You need to go further. You need to learn Persian. You need to learn Arabic. Arabic more important than Persian, by the way. Arabic first and then Persian. Okay, and Persian will be a walk in the park for you because you know Urdu, right? Once you know these languages and start to read Islamic literature in these original languages, your dress code, your demeanor, your thinking, your talking, your feeling will change. I can guarantee you that much. It will change completely. You will not even think of atheism or something like Inkarul Hadith. Never. Because you have a very strong attachment to your own civilization. Inkarul Hadith is something which came from another corner of the world. So people get influenced by their environment, by their conditioning, by their schooling, by the movies you watch, by the literature you read, by the people you listen to, you are being conditioned on daily basis. So all these new ideas, these questions people pose about the hadith literature, one of the biggest reasons is that it doesn't make sense. Huh? Have you come across this before? It doesn't make sense. ये क्या बात है? अजीब सी बात है. रसूलुल्लाह की तरफ इस तरह की बात मंसूब कर रहे हो. भाई, it doesn't make sense according to what? According to what standard? Have you ever asked that question? It doesn't make sense according to what standard? What tool are you using to measure Islamic civilization or Islamic culture or Islamic way of life? Because if you're using something else to judge Islam, then you are assuming that that system is better than Islam. You are already at fault. You are already at fault. So when the discussion starts, you have already presumed that when you are posing questions about Islam or asking questions about Islam, you have already assumed that your thinking, which has been influenced by another system, is actually the criteria to judge by. Am I making sense? Yes. That's why you have to love Islam, teach Islam, read Islam on its own basis, on its own merits, not using something else to judge Islam. This is what happened. So a lot of these questions, for example, we talked about causes and reasons that people become munkirin hadith. And by the way, this is the first step of shaitan taking you towards ultimately kufr. Shaitan will ultimately start with casting doubts in your mind because of lack of knowledge, because you don't have knowledge. You haven't studied history, cultures, languages. So shaitan knows your weaknesses, your vulnerability, and he will put these ideas in your mind. And then the next step will be, after inkarul hadith, is inkarul Quran. After inkarul hadith is inkarul Quran. First, you have rejected hadith, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, due to your conditioning, your mental conditioning, or maybe if you are not mentally conditioned, maybe because of money, because you want to be famous, or you want to be controversial, because अगर कोई आज की दुनिया में अगर आपने मशहूर होना है तो इस्लाम के ऊपर तीर फेंको. Make Islam your target and you will become a thinker, a philosopher, an intellectual. Even if you have never seen the face of a university, you start talking against Islam. Like in the West, we have this idiot called Tommy Robinson. Yeah, I don't know if you are watching some of the things that are happening in Britain. This guy cannot put two sentences of the English language without making an error. He claims to be an English man, right? And he has suddenly become a media sensation, of course for the wrong reasons. But if you want to be famous, start attacking Islam. You want to make money, suddenly this guy has become rich. This guy, he was put in prison for mortgage fraud. And now he's rich. He's got money for some reason. He's flying around, he's doing videos and against Muslims and Islam around Europe, all over Europe. Right? So the point is that if you have been influenced and you ask these questions, then we have to question the criteria, the standard you're using to judge Islam. You have to understand that you have been influenced, you are conditioned. You are asking questions about something you don't understand, you haven't studied. So most of these people, when they ask these questions or when they raise these questions about hadith, is not because they have thoroughly studied the hadith science. It's not because they have studied the science of ilm al-rijal or the science of the matan analysis of hadith or the science of subtleties of hadith. They haven't studied these sciences. They have no idea what this is, right? There is something else happening in the back of their mind that's driving the attacks on the hadith literature. So from hadith rejection comes Quran rejection eventually. That means Islam rejection. You will reject Islam and then you will become a deist who cannot possibly intellectually reject the existence of God. Someone out there who made the universe. But then what will happen is, more points will come, more doubts will come in your mind, and eventually you'll become a God rejecter altogether. So step by step, shaitan takes you step by step through these stages. I met a gentleman the other day who is from Pakistan. I'm not going to mention his name. He might know who he is. I had a meeting with him here in Islamabad a few days ago, and he doesn't believe in Islam. He said he became an atheist. First, he became a Hadith rejecter. I asked him a few basic questions about Hadith sciences, and he obviously had no idea. Not to belittle him, he was a very intelligent man, no doubt. He was a very intelligent, highly read, highly educated man, and I was very impressed by his intelligence, no doubt. But he had little knowledge on things he had judged. How can you judge something without knowledge, without studying it thoroughly, right? You have no right to judge or have opinions on a science, for example. How many of you are astrophysicists here? Astrophysicists. How many? कितने लोग हैं यहाँ पर? How many? So do you want me to take you seriously when you talk about, theories on the heavens, for example? If you say something about the solar system, or if you have a theory on the origin of the universe or the Big Bang, there are so many different models of the Big Bang theory, right? Yes? If you start to reject one of them and say, oh, bakwas model hai. Kya model hai? Ye koi model hai? Right? And the first question I'll ask you, kitna padha hai aapne bhai? How much have you actually studied into astrophysics? Bhai, ye 2-4 kitabein. Ye 2-4 articles. I'll tell you to go home. Ghar jao bhai. Try to cook pakoras and make chart for yourself or something like that, yeah? But don't have any opinions on astrophysics. The Hadith science is no less than that. The science of Hadith is a very deep science. Not every Tom, Dick and Harry can deal with it. You need decades of study to understand the intricate details of the Hadith science, how the Hadith literature has been preserved. So, this gentleman I met, he had very interesting ideas. And he said first he started with rejecting Hadith, and then he became a deist. A deist is someone who doesn't believe in religion. And then he became an atheist. And amazingly, from atheist, he became a Platonic Christian. Pakistani brother, Urdu speaking, he's a Platonic Christian. And then I had a very long discussion with him. How can you be a follower of Plato? Strictly speaking, if you are a pure follower of Plato, you cannot possibly follow Jesus Christ. You have to distort the image of Jesus in order for you to fit him into the Platonic model. You cannot use pure Jesus, who was a prophet of God with a revelation. You cannot fit him into Platonic model Plato, who was not a prophet. Right? So we had a very long discussion. From that discussion, I realized this is how shaitan works. First thing is rejecting the Sunnah, Hadith, right? And this is what Hadith rejection leads to very often. It leads to eventually kufr, disbelief in Islam. This is why it needs to be handled before it begins. So inshallah, by the grace of Allah, we will continue with these sessions or these lectures and highlighting some of the shubahat of the Hadith rejectors. In the next session, we will cover the following points, inshallah. And those points are the doubts raised by Hadith rejectors. Some of them, for example, they state that Hadith is dhanni knowledge. It is not yaqini. It is dhan. Dhan, you know what dhan is? Yeah. With dha. जिसको हम उर्दू में ज़ोई कहते हैं. Right? ज़ोई कहते हैं ना उर्दू में. Right? अलिफ बेते आती है सबको? Are you sure? कितने अल्फ़ाबेट्स हैं उर्दू के? बस. अरबी के कितने अल्फ़ाबेट्स हैं? कितने? अरबी के 26 हैं. 26 ही हैं. अरबी. उर्दू के कितने हैं? 36?
29.
जहाँ तक मुझे याद है 28 है. रे ज़्यादा है और याला बारी जिसको कहते हैं ना, ये या पढ़ते हैं उसको. हाँ, टे भी है. हाँ चलो, थैंक यू. टे भी है,
पे भी है,
पे भी है,
चे भी है.
32 है. चलो, मुझे भी आज कुछ सीखने को मिला. टे भी है, रे भी है, या भी है. से तो अरबी में भी है.
पे भी है.
पे और अरबी में नहीं है. अरबी में सिर्फ बे है. हाँ जी. तो द पॉइंट इज के what were we talking about before we came to alphabet? हाँ, दन. एक डाउट वो रेज करते हैं कि हदीस नॉलेज इज दन्नी, इज नॉट यकीनी, एंड दे टेक द मीनिंग ऑफ दन एज डाउट अमेजिंगली, और एंड दे यूज सम कुरानिक वर्सेस टू मेक द पॉइंट. कुरान की कुछ आयात हैं, इन्ना बअद दन इस्मुन फॉर एग्जाम्पल. हाँ, वो आयत जो है कि कुछ जो डाउट है वो गुनाह है. They use verses like that. Or a lot of these hadith rejectors, when you start talking to them even about the Quran, because they are Quran only Muslims, even the Quran they don't know. Because if they read the Quran carefully, they would have realized that their argument, Quranically speaking, is lame, is absolutely, hilarious. And we will discuss the details in due course, inshallah, in the coming lecture. Another doubt they raise is that hadith literature is mostly ma'nawi. Hadith has been paraphrased. For example, these are paraphrased words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has not been quoted word by word. Rather, these are all paraphrased reports. Okay, that's another doubt they raise, and we will address it briefly. To address it very quickly, Quran ki jo stories hain, there are stories in the Quran, story of Nuh alayhi salam, story of Yusuf alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. All the dialogues, are they paraphrased or are they in the same language those prophets spoke? They are paraphrased by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, Musa alayhi salam didn't speak Arabic, Yusuf didn't speak Arabic, Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't speak Arabic. So the Quran paraphrased the words of previous prophets. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks the truth. Allah is telling us the story as it happened in the Arabic language. Okay, so there are many more shubhat there is. For example, this was an Ajmi, for example, a non-Arabian Persian conspiracy to corrupt the message of Islam. That's why so many reports were forged in the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were attributed to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they give an example that most muhaddiseen were actually Ajmis or Persians, to be specific, to be precise, right? So they mention the name of Imam Bukhari, Imam Tirmizi, Imam Muslim, and Imam Abu Dawud as-Sajistani, and But what they do is deliberately, obviously, because they don't know, most of them don't know, they ignore all the Arabs, all the Arab muhaddiseen. And there's a huge list of them, which we will discuss, inshallah, in the next session in due course. And there are many more shubhat. For example, hadith was written nearly over 2 centuries after the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah ki 2 sadiyon baad tumne hadith likhi, ye kahan se aa gayi bhai information? Where did, sorry?
That is the most common question.
Exactly, one of the most common questions Munkareen hadith ask, or those who reject the hadith, is that hadith literature was written 200 years after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, it cannot be fully trusted. Okay, hold on a second. And then they use the model of the Gospels, that you guys are inconsistent. You reject the Gospels of Isa alayhi salam that were written by some people after Isa alayhi salam, and they were written closer to the time of Isa alayhi salam than the hadith was. Then how can you reject that and accept hadith? Firstly, we don't reject the gospel literature in totality. No, we don't. We believe there are elements of truth therein. There are verses that have been paraphrased from the words of Isa alayhi salam, right? We believe that. We don't believe the Gospels are entirely false. 4 Gospels I'm talking about, or the message of Isa alayhi salam is completely lost. No, that would be rejecting the Quran, because the Quran states that there is truth therein. يَجِدُونَهُ مَكْتُوبًا عِنْدَهُمْ فِي التَّوْرَاةِ وَالْإِنْجِيلِ. They find Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned with them in the Torah and Injil. عِنْدَهُمْ, which is in their hands, with them. So there are verses there about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, but we respond to these hadith rejectors that there is no comparison between hadith literature and the Gospels, because we have categories in hadith literature. We have Sahih, okay, then we have Hasan, then we have even Hasan is of different types depending on the level of certainty, right? And then we have Da'if, then we have Mawdu', completely forged, lies. How do we know? By looking at the chain, the people who are narrating. So our literature depends on people who are narrating publicly. They were real figures, they existed, and they were known publicly, and there is evidence for that, which we will discuss inshallah ta'ala in due course. And Imam Bukhari, when he narrates something from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he doesn't just make it up. He doesn't say Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and doesn't give us the reasons, or doesn't give us the chain or the sources. He tells us, Haddathana, narrated to us, or we were told, Haddathana, Haddathani, or I was told by my teacher, Makki ibn Abi Ibrahim. And he was an, he narrated from his teacher, Yazid ibn Abi Ubaid. And he an Salma ibn al-Aqwa. He narrated from his teacher Salma ibn al-Aqwa, who narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's a chain. Bukhari gives the people that this, I got my information from Makki ibn Abi Ibrahim. He got his information from Yazid ibn Abi Daud, and he got his information from Salma ibn al-Aqwa. And he got his information from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there is an uninterrupted chain. There is no comparison. There's no comparison. With the Gospels, there is inqata, in hadith terminology, cut off. There is a gap between Isa alayhi salam and the people who are writing the Gospels of at least by the most conservative estimates, 30 to 60 years. There's no comparison. So inshallah ta'ala we will discuss all these details, and this is why when I said earlier in the evening that when we start to go through each and every single one of these issues, it will take us a long time to go through them. So I will try my best to fit them into one session. It might take 2 hours. If not, then there might be 2 or 3 more sessions on the same topic. Okay? Until then, thank you so much for listening. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.